Meow, everybody, I'm Cantonese Cat. Hey everybody, Cantonese Cat here. I'm going to do something a little bit different today. I'm going to compare a few charts here. First of all, I'm going to talk about MicroStrategy, Coinbase, and then end with Robinhood. This is MicroStrategy up here on top, and down here is underlying correlated asset Bitcoin, because back in July 2020, it has been announced that MicroStrategy started stacking Bitcoin, and they've really been a leverage play for Bitcoin because they actually try to get in debt, and they basically just do everything they can to stack as much Bitcoin as they can, and that's kind of their whole new strategy, if you will. So if you actually look at how Bitcoin versus MicroStrategy has been doing, both of those really started having a bull market probably around like December 2022. And as you can see, MicroStrategy, which is up top over here, actually had a more bullish run during this bull market, which is not surprising if this is a leverage play. Generally, during early market, it might end up outperforming its underlying assets. And maybe during late cycle, late market, it might end up underperforming as more liquidity ends up getting pulled out by the whales, as people get a little bit more scared behind the scenes, while retail just end up chasing and end up being bag holders. So what you're really seeing here is, from this bull market on, you can see even right around, between like May to around September, remember when Bitcoin just kind of went sideways, went nowhere for like 6 months, 7 months. MicroStrategy was not doing that. What it was doing was making higher high, higher low, higher high, and higher low. And as Bitcoin goes sideways, MicroStrategy just kept on kind of going up. And what you're seeing as a result of that, you end up having a bullish cross for the Tenkan and Kijun on the monthly Ichimoku cloud analysis. The blue line crosses over the red line here in December 2023, when Bitcoin didn't really get this bullish cross until December 2024. And you could say, yeah, well, Bitcoin went above the Ichimoku cloud before MicroStrategy ever did, right? But really the piercing movement to try to get above the Ichimoku cloud really happened around the same time, around February 2024. And since then, it's just been cooling off sideways, both in terms of MicroStrategy as well as Bitcoin. The one thing that is a little bit different between MicroStrategy and Bitcoin is that the Tenkan and the Kijun is really close to price over here, which means that this is MicroStrategy. This is actually saying that MicroStrategy is not really that far extended compared to Bitcoin. You see how Bitcoin is a little bit overextended away from the Tenkan. And whenever price gets a little bit too far from the Tenkan, generally you might end up getting punished for it. Either you have price going sideways, or you might actually price kind of go down and touch the Tenkan and get closer to the Tenkan. The blue line over here before is bullish continuation, right? MicroStrategy doesn't have that problem. It just backtested the Tenkan and Kijun and held. So it's quite interesting that like MicroStrategy looking more bullish than Bitcoin, but actually it looks less overextended on the Ichimoku cloud analysis, which is something that's very interesting to look at. Now, this is not always the case. What I meant by early cycle, where a leverage play like MicroStrategy is doing better than Bitcoin, that's not always the case, right? But look at the last cycle. Whenever they MicroStrategy ended up announcing that they're going to buy Bitcoin and hold Bitcoin, really started around July 2020, right? Since then, it's just been having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 green candles here non-stop, right? And then you're met with a red candle over here after it peaked in February, right? So the problem is that with Bitcoin, it did not do that. What it ended up doing with Bitcoin was that there actually a little bit of a consolidation over here. You actually a little bit of a red candle over here. So MicroStrategy during early cycle, it just kept outperforming Bitcoin. But then during late cycle, it started underperforming, right? You can see this big giant wake up here, and MicroStrategy is extremely exhausted. And even when Bitcoin continued to make a little bit more of a higher high here in March and April, MicroStrategy was never really able to get back above that, right? And as it goes on to November 2021, Bitcoin was able to make even a little bit of a higher high here compared to April 2021, whereas MicroStrategy just continued to make like an equal or like a lower high over here. So basically this entire trend over here, basically this is all right what I meant by like late cycle, when MicroStrategy, which is going to be a little bit more of like a leverage play, is going to end up underperforming the underlying asset, right? So far it's overperforming. So far it's actually doing better than Bitcoin. So that's something of note. There's a lot of reasons to believe that I don't think Bitcoin bull market is over. Again, I've made previously a video to talk about the top 10 reasons as to why I don't think Bitcoin has topped yet. And MicroStrategy's price action is more or less kind of confirming that actually. Another way to look at the how bullish MicroStrategy is compared to what Bitcoin is doing is to pull up the Bollinger Band here on the monthly chart here. I'm going to turn off the Ichimoku cloud to give you a little bit more of a comparison. So basically for each of the Bitcoin bull cycle, you're going to have the Bollinger Band really kind of expanding all the way down to the bottom whenever you have like a bull cycle going up, right? The bull cycle, it may have already gotten started because we really don't have that Bollinger Band, lower Bollinger Band really pulling all the way down quite just yet. And what you're really seeing here is that it's just kind of consolidating sideways. So the Bollinger Band is actually not able to pull all the way down. It's actually looking like this is a little bit more contracted here, waiting for price to kind of go up to push the Bollinger Band down again, right? What is MicroStrategy doing? MicroStrategy, the Bollinger Band is already down in the negatives. Like this is already showing that the trend, the bullish trend here for MicroStrategy is actually looking stronger than what Bitcoin is doing just overall. Like this whole bull market over here has been outperforming Bitcoin, right? That's something very interesting to think about. Now, if you also think about what MicroStrategy is doing in relation to Bitcoin, whether or not they outperform or not outperform, you actually do a MicroStrategy over Bitcoin chart. And again, we're going to start around like July 2020, right? You can see that after MicroStrategy start announcing that they're going to buy Bitcoin and hold Bitcoin, you can see MicroStrategy really from this going on for about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 months. It's just been outperforming Bitcoin. It's just kept on going up, 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 up. And then after it gets to the point where it becomes a little bit more of a late cycle kind of thing, it just ended up underperforming Bitcoin for a very, very long time, right? The second peak was around, for Bitcoin was around like November 2021. You can see that like MicroStrategy is really underperforming Bitcoin during this entire thing over here, right? So maybe the bull trend for Bitcoin is already a little bit exhausted, over here. And the whales can tell, and they just ended up, just basically kind of exiting the market before anybody else. Basically exiting MicroStrategy before anybody else, really. Since then, it's been underperforming Bitcoin all the way down to around like May or June 2022. As you remember, this is one of the horrible times of the stock market in general. And what you're going to see over here is it's just basically been going sideways. So we formed a very, very nice cup until the bull market again started around December 2022, right? When the bull market started around December 2022, you can see that MicroStrategy has since then been outperforming Bitcoin for almost a year and a half now. And you can also see that this is the Ichimoku cloud, right? You have a bullish cross over here in September 2023, basically saying that the trend of MicroStrategy outperforming Bitcoin is for reals. And sure enough, it just kept on going up, right? You're really talking about like MicroStrategy performing almost twice as good over this span of like the whole last year. And you're also seeing something very, very interesting too, right? After this bullish crossover here, the ratio between MicroStrategy and Bitcoin, you can actually see that it just keeps on using these like Tenkan and Kijun line here as support, and then is able to kind of bounce further up. And what's happening over here so far, right? For March, April, and May, you can see that MicroStrategy over Bitcoin chart is actually stuck inside the Ichimoku cloud, trying to break above the cloud, just been failing to do so. For the month of June, we're actually able to break above the cloud. And you can also see this on the chart here too. You can see that MicroStrategy is actually outperforming Bitcoin, right? It's actually broken above the cloud, and actually, if anything, kind of back test the cloud here a little bit. There is a possibility, because the MicroStrategy over Bitcoin chart is over the Ichimoku cloud, there is a possibility that the outperformance of MicroStrategy over Bitcoin could keep going. I don't know how high. It's kind of crazy to think about. Like, I don't know how high it's just broken above the monthly cloud, so it could go up a lot higher. That's just something to think about. Now, that was a pretty interesting thought. Right now, going back to the MicroStrategy chart itself and trying to find what it's doing. I'm going to basically just hide. Again, I'm going to show you a couple of indicators over here. I'm going to go to the weekly chart here. You can see that it's really been squeezing. Again, MicroStrategy is looking better than Bitcoin because if you do the bull market support band, you also look at the 20-week moving average. It's like it's just bounced once and bounced twice, right? It's above the bull market support band, and the Bollinger Band is squeezing on the weekly. So it tells you that maybe a bigger move is coming. We also look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin also has a very nice squeeze, but it's underperforming that a little bit, right? It broke kind of underneath the bull market support band over here. Most likely it's going to end up closing back above by the end of the week, maybe. But it's kind of broken underneath a little bit, right? So MicroStrategy continues to outperform Bitcoin, looking at a lot of these technicals I'm looking at here, which is quite fascinating. A couple other things too. Instead of looking at the weekly chart, you can also look at the monthly chart. One thing to look at again was the Ichimoku cloud. I like the fact that it's not way overextended. Also like the fact that it's also continued to expand on the Bollinger Band, as I was saying, kind of like how it did over the last cycle, right? It's just absolutely insane bull trend. It's looking very nice. And I'm gonna pull up the GAN over here. And this really illustrates in terms of what MicroStrategy is trying to do. I'm gonna do a little bit of like a weekly chart here that might illustrate that even a little bit better in terms of what MicroStrategy is trying to do. Really, since the peak of the last cycle, it really has just been bouncing between these Fibonacci levels, and it's been rejecting from the arc underneath. It broke underneath the arc down here, and it's been rejected, came back to this angle, trying to bounce, fell through, right? Trying to find support down this angle over here. And since then, it's just been bouncing from one arc to another, one arc to another, bounced from this angle, went to the next arc, went to the top of the arc, bounced to the bottom of the arc, test the Fibonacci level here almost perfectly, bounced to the bottom of the arc almost perfectly, broke through the arc, eventually was able to break above this Fibonacci level, and it ended up going up to, automatically, after it broke above this arc over here, automatically went up to the next arc over here. Went up to the arc here, got rejected at the top of the arc, fell down underneath. Where did it find support? At the 0.786, right? Trying to break back above, got rejected at the bottom of the arc over here so far, came back down. Where did it find support? Close to previous all-time high. Okay. If it's able to break above all this resistance over here, you have a couple of other resistance here, right? You have an arc over here. It's going to be around like 18,000 probably by the time it hits there. Not 1800, sorry, by the time it hits there. You have an angle over here that could potentially serve as resistance. You also have a little bit of a horizontal zone over here around 2280. That's going to be resistance. Once it's able to break above this like 1800 to 2280 zone over here, it could hit like 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 in a hurry, especially depending on how Bitcoin does, right? If Bitcoin gets to like six figures, or even get to like something crazy, 150, 175,000, or even 200,000, MicroStrategy could potentially hit like some of these higher targets up here easy, like around 6,000, 7,000, somewhere around here, and that could be the end of the cycle, or it could be hitting these arcs over here. That could be the end of the cycle. If you believe that this is the end of the cycle right here, then then you can believe in that. I don't think it is. Again, I have like top 10 reasons to why I don't think that Bitcoin has topped yet. So MicroStrategy is probably not going to top yet, right? All of that stuff over here so far is just still seem like it's early cycle. So if it's able to break about the zone of resistance over here, I think the next stop is going to be like up a lot higher, potentially around 4,000 or 5,000, maybe even like 6,000, 7,000, somewhere up here. That could be the end of the cycle. We will see, right? Now that was MicroStrategy. I have another chart over here that might be a little bit intriguing to look at, which is Coinbase. I have Coinbase up here on top. Basically what it's looking like is a big giant rounded bottom, right? And it's just been basically forming a little bit of a hand over here. And I think a good comparison for what Coinbase is going to be Ethereum. I think that might be a fair comparison in terms of whether or not Coinbase is doing compared in relations to what Ethereum is doing, right? So we're going to use the same strategy looking at Ichimoku Cloud. If you look at Ichimoku Cloud, you don't have the cloud for Coinbase yet, because Coinbase stock hasn't really been around for that long. Like, it's been really started around like April 2021. So it really hasn't been around for that long, right? So you had the bullish cross happen around the same time, and Ethereum did backtest the Tenkan line almost perfectly, and Coinbase actually didn't really get too overextended from that. You also have a very, very similar resistance level over here throughout the entire, 8 months over here, throughout the entire year over here for Ethereum. Very, very similar level where it's trying to break above, right? So actually, Coinbase chart looked very, very similar to the Ethereum chart. Not that big of a difference between the two. The only problem is that you can see that this is very clear. Coinbase IPO'd, maybe it's because of hype, right? Coinbase IPO'd at a very, very high price, around like $400 somewhere up here. But this is also maybe one of those late cycle thing where Coinbase is never really able to touch its IPO price, while Ethereum continued to went on and make a higher high in November of 2021. Right. So again, so far we actually are not really seeing that so far. If anything, I think Coinbase is actually looking just about the same, if not a little bit better than Ethereum, because if you look at the Bollinger Band, I'll show you the Bollinger Band, and I'll explain to you why I think that is. Coinbase actually has gotten more impulsive price action during this bull market than Ethereum. I make that as a statement because if you look at the lower Bollinger Band for Coinbase, is all the way down in the negatives. This bull trend over here for the last year and a half has really completely extended the lower Bollinger Band all the way down. Has Ethereum done that over the last year and a half, 2 years? No, it hasn't. It's expanding, but because the consolidation over here is still a little bit contracty, it hasn't really fully extended all the way down. So Coinbase actually is the winner here in terms of how impulsive the bull trend has been based on what we're seeing here in the Bollinger Band, right? And we might still be at the early cycle because if anything, like Coinbase is either at least equal to, or if anything is a little bit more bullish than Ethereum, right? If you look at the Coinbase chart itself, I'm going to turn off the GAN over here. I'm going to look at the weekly. I'm going to pull up the bull market support band. This actually looks very, very similar to what Ethereum is doing right now. It's just right there at the bull market support band, right? So they're doing about the same. So Coinbase is minimally about the same as Ethereum on the weekly chart as well. A couple of things to think about in terms of what he could end up doing. Well, I'm going to pull up the Fibonacci level as well as the GAN that I have over here. And you can see really from the bottom around December 2022 and January 2023, it's just been breaking arc after arc after arc, doing a little bit of back test here at the angle, confluent with a important Fibonacci level, right? And it just kept on breaking another arc and back testing an arc after getting rejected here at the golden ratio of 0.618, right? And it's just been getting to the horizontal zone over here. It's just been kind of oscillating around here, right? I think that naturally it might backtest the arc down here, potentially around $200. If it ends up doing that, that would be fine because it's a pretty, very important support. But it's either going to gravitate down here or it's going to end up gravitating up there. There's no really anywhere in between because the price has just been consolidating sideways for a very, very long time now, right? For like several months. So it may touch down here or it might end up gravitating up here would be the next move. If it ends up gravitating up there, it could challenge this previous all-time high up here around 400, 430, which is going to be confluent with this arc over here, right? And if it actually is able to break above this range around the 400s, then you're talking about potentially hitting some of the crazier targets up here later on in 2025 at this arc over here, and also maybe at the horizontal line up here. So you're talking about anywhere from like 1,000, 900 to 1,000 if it hits the arc over here. Or you're talking about potentially hitting the horizontal line over here, which is going to be 1,250, somewhere around there. So something to think about, and it's not completely crazy to think about stock could potentially retrace and extend out to 2.618. It's not completely crazy to think about, especially when the bull trend is this impulsive, especially when the consolidation over here is happening when you're actually just basically backtesting the market support band, and especially when the bullish band looks like it's squeezing, looks like it wants to make a big move. And most likely the move is going to be higher because this is a bull trend. It's been doing nothing but forming higher highs and higher lows. So that's Coinbase. Now, the other thing to look at is Robinhood, right? Robinhood, I mean, I try to compare this with like Dogecoin, but to be completely honest, like it's been outperforming Dogecoin. It's been outperforming a lot of alts. So it's actually, maybe if anything, it's a little bit front running a lot of the other Bitcoin or altcoin related assets. And it's just been forming nothing but crazy higher lows and higher highs. It's a little bit overextended away from the Tenkan, which is a little bit concerning. I like to kind of back test it down around 20 zone, allowing the Tenkan and Kitchen to kind of catch up before going up higher. But it is what it is. Like sometimes it's just going to do what it wants to do. Bollinger Band is expanding very, very nicely on the monthly. Right? On the weekly, you can also see just like Bitcoin, just like Ethereum, just like Coinbase, just like MicroStrategy is starting to have a little bit of Bollinger Band contraction over here. It's hitting a lot of resistance up here. We're going to talk about what that is. Why is it having a hard time trying to get back about the zone over here, and is it whether or not is it going to come back and back test the horizontal zone over here around 20 after a breakthrough, right? Which is a completely logical thing for it to do, because if it does that, it's going to end up probably back testing a rising 20 week moving average and a bull market support band. It's probably going to end up back testing anywhere around like 20, maybe a little bit lower before going higher, right? Right now, it just looks like we have a hard time kind of break about this resistance zone over here. So we'll see what Robinhood wants to do, but because it's been forming nothing but a higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, I think this is going to end up having some consolidation over here. But afterwards, probably going to end up break out and end up going, pretty nice bullish after some even potentially painful back tests of some of the stuff up here, even in the high teens, is possible, right? But the question is, why are we having resistance there, and what are some of the price targets for Robinhood? If you put up the GAN that I have here, the GAN actually says that it shouldn't actually go up to like some of these regions up here in the high 20s, which is going to be where the ARC is. But because it is right at the 0.5 Fibonacci retracement level here on the log scale, and it's just ended up getting rejected right there. So this is actually a very, very nice way to look at what Robinhood has been doing for the last couple of years, right? It went all the way down to the bottom. This is the absolute bottom over here, where price is like 6.81. And what it ended up doing is trying to challenge some of the stuff up here, including the arc over here, including the horizontal line over here, including the Fibonacci level here at the 0.236. It's just been kind of oscillating around here, right? Oscillating between Fibonacci level, oscillating between this horizontal line over here, oscillating between this arc over here, and eventually is able to break about all this stuff, right? Again, it got rejected over here at the arc over here too, but eventually broke back underneath, was able to break back above, broke above the arc, kind of went above and got rejected an angle over here, trying to back test the arc over here a little bit, but eventually is able to kind of bounce above this second arc over here, back tested the arc, right now is getting rejected at the 0.5 Fibonacci level. That's what I think it's doing. So there are really two paths where to go. One is to go down to the horizontal line over here, which is like around 20, which is going to be back test of this high over here. The other one is if it ends up going sideways and up breaking through 0.5, you're talking about like 25, anywhere from like 25 to 28, which is going to be the next level. After that, you're talking about the 30s. After that, you're talking about the 40s, right? And I think there's a good potential for it to potentially even hit some of the higher arcs up here. I don't know whether or not this cycle is going to end up hitting the previous all-time high here at 85. I think it was a little bit insane, but I can potentially see it potentially hitting some of the green arcs over here through time, and that would still be a pretty significant gain compared to where it is right now, right? But we are hitting some resistance. We're trying to get over some stuff over here, and that's what Robinhood is doing. But overall, it looks very, very bullish still. I just wanted to show you these very, very interesting ways to look at the bull cycle compared to the past bull cycle, what is early and late behaviors, and where we are now. And that can extrapolate in terms of letting you know whether or not the bull cycle could be over, whether or not MicroStrategy could potentially continue to outperform Bitcoin, which looks like it could be the case. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. Have a good one. Bye.